Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for August 24th, 2023. Well, yesterday was a day when all of you who are true patriots of your nation and world citizens should be celebrating as the BRICS summit moved ahead in a dramatic way toward ending the reign of the unipolar order, of the bankers, of the financial elite, of the military-industrial complex. It was a day of extraordinary developments. It's clear now that a revolution is underway, one which has been forecast more than 50 years ago by American statesman and economist Lyndon LaRouche, who devoted his life to defeating the Western oligarchs who used the model of the British system to try to crush the American system. And LaRouche's opposition brought him the enmity of people such as Henry Kissinger, George Herbert Walker Bush, British MI6, the FBI, the CIA. But his writings and his persistent advocacy of the system of the American Republic has created waves internationally. And now we're seeing in the BRICS summit, which ends today in South Africa, the realization that LaRouche's dreams can be fulfilled, and that in fact these have become the dreams of statesmen around the world. The idea that there's a basic human right to economic development, free from colonial coercion from the banks and corporate cartels, that was LaRouche's mission. That's our mission today at the Schiller Institute. Now, the language that's being discussed in the BRICS summit parallels that of the American Revolution. The defense of sovereign rights of nations for development based on their own history and tradition. The investment in physical economic production as a way of overcoming poverty. That's the American system. Scientific and technological development that's shared for the benefit of all mankind. Now, unfortunately, if you live in the global north or the so-called west, you're not hearing about it. What's going on in South Africa. What you're getting is you're subjected to a stream of lies in the mainstream media, in Bloomberg and Reuters and CNN, about division among the 5 BRICS nations, that their intent is anti-American attack on the dollar. No, it's not anti-American, it's anti-cartel. And as long as the U.S. government is functioning as an agency to impose a unipolar order, which says there's only one model of economic development, and that's one that benefits J.P. Morgan Chase, the City of London, and so on, as long as that's the policy of the United States government, it will be anti-American. But it's not anti-American people or anti-American system. These countries that are convening and that want to join the BRICS want the benefits of what the American Revolution represented. Now, unfortunately, the alternate patriot blogs are filled with some of the same crap that you're seeing in the mainstream media about dethroning the dollar, decreasing U.S. dominance. Well, what is Western dominance in economic policy? It's anti-growth. It's green science fiction. It's an end to sovereignty. It's a global banking dictatorship of private central banks. If you consider yourself an American patriot, is this what you want to defend? The policy of the military-industrial complex, Wall Street, and the City of London? So how foolish can some of our so-called patriots be getting roped into defending the U.S. United Kingdom unipolar status? How has that worked for you? Tax dollars going to permanent war conducted by a military-industrial complex, to carry out regime change coups, to protect the private fortunes of corporate oligarchs and the military-industrial complex. Think about it. China and Russia aren't your enemy. The enemy is the so-called deep state, which controls the media and which controls both parties in the United States, most of the parties in Western Europe, and is committed to continuing war and austerity policies. So yesterday should have been a day of celebration. And I hope people will look at YouTube and see some of the events that occurred. Let me just review a few of them. First, it was announced by the South African foreign minister that there's a general agreement to expand the membership of the BRICS, and that they'll be announcing that today, and we'll of course have that for you tomorrow. They reaffirmed their commitment to cooperation, credit through the new development bank, outside of the International Monetary Fund and the shakedown artists of Wall Street and London, scientific and technological cooperation. And the purpose of this is to eliminate poverty. Now, in the midst of the deliberations yesterday was an extraordinary event, the successful landing on the moon of India's Chandrayaan-3 space module. This you can see on YouTube as well, and you can see the absolute delight of the Indian scientists. And Prime Minister Modi at the BRICS summit spoke about this, and he said this was an event of Indian advance, but the success belongs to all humanity, and it offers us a vision as we prepare for a future. Not space wars, not geopolitical division of space, not threats to stop development, but to embrace scientific advance for the benefit of all people. Cooperation, mutual benefit. This is what Benjamin Franklin and Alexander Hamilton and George Washington had in mind when they made the American Revolution. Remember, the American Revolution was the first successful anti-colonial war to establish a republic that represented the interests of all the citizens. Now, it was imperfect at first. The Constitution had the right principles, but it took a while to work through some of these aspects of it. For example, slavery. The reason there was slavery was that there was still a British Empire that was trying to subvert the American Revolution. And they used the Civil War to try and tear the United States apart. We're still under the control in terms of media, in terms of finance, in terms of corporate policy, of a globalist cartel which is out to destroy the best tradition of the American Revolution. And so when I say that our allies are Russia, China, and the BRICS, they're trying to do what the American founding fathers did 250 years ago. They understood, the founding fathers, that they were opening the way for a collaboration of sovereign republics, not geopolitical wars to defend imperial predatory looting. So if you live in the so-called West, or the global North, you should welcome this development. Now, the fact that you're not hearing about it, well, that should tell you something. As I mentioned at the beginning, Lyndon LaRouche fought for the idea of global economic development based on scientific and technological advance. The idea that we become free to the extent that we increase the productivity of every person employed on the planet. And that requires something called energy flux density, an increase in that, a move toward ever more efficient forms of energy production. This is what's being targeted and attacked by the Green New Deal, which is the official policy of the United States and the European Union. That's why the African countries are moving in support of the BRICS. I was on a panel yesterday on Algerian television with a professor from India, a businessman from Algeria, and a Chinese journalist. And we were all in agreement that these developments represent the best of the tradition of nation building, and not nation building as a colonial policy to exploit cheap labor and cheap raw materials for the globalist cartels, but for every person to have a stake in the development and advance. And that's what Modi meant when he said the success of the Indian space mission belongs to all humanity. So I would urge you, share this video. Get your friends to realize they're being lied to over and over and over, including on so-called patriotic blog sites which say that Russia and China are out to end Western dominance. What they're out to end is Western geopolitics, which is dominance not of Western nations and Western people, but of handfuls of corporate cartels and business billionaires who are imposing their will through something called the rules-based order. So share this video, read and sign the appeal that's attached in the description section from Helga Zepp-LaRouche, and watch her discussion with me yesterday where she goes through this in more detail. I think you'll be happy to be freed from the delusions that are imposed on people in the West by the so-called mainstream media and the censorship industrial complex, which is attempting to control your thinking. So tomorrow is Friday. I'll be taking your questions. Send them to me at harleysch@gmail.com.